The last thing they would expect is to find a suitcase with a human body in it.
The big question is, how the hell did he get there?
They were crazy in love at first, but it quickly became tumultuous. There were infidelities. They'd go back and forth. They'd fight. I think they liked the drama of it.
And the next thing coming out of his mouth is, when I get home, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to smash your face in. He said he was leaving and he wasn't coming back.
Were you ever angry enough to want to see him dead?
There were times I wanted him gone, but gone doesn't mean dead.
And Mel just said, well, I'm a single mom now, and now I've just got to get on with my life. I said, well, no, the next thing is we've got to figure out who did this to him. And after I got off the phone, I said, she did it.
They couldn't find any forensic evidence whatsoever to establish that this was a crime scene.
Do you still insist that you're innocent?
Absolutely. I still feel like, how could somebody think that I did that?
I think she did not actually commit the crime.
It turns out it isn't the end of this story.
My name is Megan Sachs. I'm a criminologist at Fairleigh Dickinson University. In simplest terms, criminology is the scientific study of what causes crime and how the criminal justice system responds to crime.
I've written about 25 true crime books over the years, and I think Melanie Maguire's is perhaps one of the most interesting ones and baffling.
This is Melanie Maguire, arrested today minutes after dropping off her children at daycare.
Melanie Maguire, a New Jersey nurse, was accused of killing her husband, cutting up his body and throwing it into the Chesapeake Bay.
In 2007, what was being called the suitcase murder trial was generating an enormous amount of media attention, not just in New Jersey, but all across the country.
3 bizarre discoveries, 3 separate suitcases, all containing human remains.
A woman who was on trial for her very life. She says the real truth behind the crime has never been revealed.
With no history of violence and no apparent motive for murder, could she really have done it?
She was this beautiful young nurse, and they were this seemingly normal middle-class couple, and the murder happened in such a grisly way.
The idea that this beautiful nurse could have actually killed her husband and then cut him up is just incredible.
Of course, there were the salacious aspects.
Mrs. Maguire is a registered nurse, and prosecutors say she had an affair with a doctor.
She didn't fit the profile, I guess, of a murderer.
Over the years, students and colleagues of ours have come to me and said, you know, Melanie Maguire proclaims her innocence and would love to tell her story.
I started thinking, oh, maybe there is a little more to this case than what you just see on the surface. And then the idea of a podcast came up, and I was all in.
On direct appeal, we examined the murder conviction of Melanie Maguire following a highly publicized trial. Looking at the evidence that was presented and the evidence that may have seemed insignificant at the time, we form our own conclusion about Melanie's guilt.
We here at ABC have our own history with the Melanie Maguire case. Back in 2007, ABC's Cynthia McFadden had the first on-camera interview with the mother of 2 on trial for murdering her husband.
Who is the Melanie Maguire you hope the jury knows?
The one who tried to take care of everybody, who didn't make the smartest decisions, but admitted to those mistakes to the people she trusted most, but did not admit what she's accused of. I have been incarcerated for 12 and a half, going on 13 years now.
Do you still insist that you're innocent?
Absolutely.
You're sitting here a wrongfully convicted person.
Correct. Absolutely.
And what have those years been like?
I tell people it's not as bad as you think in some ways, and it's so much worse than I could ever articulate in others. After all these years, I still feel hurt. I still feel bothered. I still feel like, how could somebody think that I did that?
This whole saga begins on May 5th, 2004, with an odd discovery in Virginia Beach.
Early morning, a couple of fishermen and their kids are out on a boat by the Chesapeake Bay.
Me and my friend Don Connors was going to go out fishing, and we both had days off, and D, or Don, we called him D, he said keep his kids out of school, we're going to take them fishing. So everybody was excited. We went right out through this bridge here, and if you keep on going, you'll run right into the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel.
The Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel is about 17.5 miles long. It really is quite astonishing. It connects the eastern shore of Virginia to Virginia Beach.
Has 2 tunnels for 2 shipping channels, and once you get on the other side, you go north, you're up into Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey. So we went out there and anchored off of Fisherman's Island, and we were just doing some fishing.
And suddenly, one notices that a suitcase has floated by.
We wheeled the boat around, pulled up alongside it. I immediately thought it probably blew off of a car, you know, and off the luggage rack or something. D and his son had reached over and were trying to pull it up in. It had some weight to it, so I stopped the boat, reached in and helped him pull that thing up in there. And laid it in the floor of the boat.
They found a dark green Kenneth Cole suitcase in pretty good condition that was apparently part of a luggage set of 3.
They put it on board, and the little boy with them is very, very excited. He thinks it's buried treasure, so he wants to open it.
The contents were covered with a thick trash bag, like a hefty bag or something. And I said, uh-oh. I was a little bit nervous then when I saw the black bags in there. So it's a turn to say something to D, and while I was talking to D, the young boy reached down and ripped open the plastic trash bags. There was no doubt of what it was. It was a set of human legs.
There's a pair of male legs from the knee down, look very fresh, and they recoil in horror.
I looked down there and said, oh my gracious. So I closed the bag back up, and I dialed 911.
I was out on patrol in the Chesapeake Bay when I received a radio call. I made arrangements with him to meet me, and he transferred a suitcase over to my boat.
I handed him the luggage, and he seemed surprised. He goes, what do you want me to do with that? And I said, open it up.
I was pretty shocked. I'd never seen a suitcase with body parts in it before. There really wasn't any smell. They actually looked kind of fresh.
The first suitcase being found was big news. It's not, a common find by any means, especially in this area.
This is an alarming story. Everybody wanted to know who the man in the suitcase was.
We kind of figured there had to be other suitcases with other parts in it.
After the initial shock of them finding the suitcase, everyone was just waiting for what was going to wash up next. The Chesapeake Bay area, there's a lot of boaters, there are bird watchers, there's Fisherman's Island, a nature sanctuary. This is really kind of a tourist, a fun area.
People are going there to relax or going with their families. The last thing they would expect is to find a suitcase with a human body in it.
It was the start of the summer tourist season, which is huge for Virginia Beach, and getting that kind of negative publicity of bodies washing up in suitcases was something they did not need. 6 days later, the student was on Fisherman's Island in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay, which is a nature preserve. And she saw a dark green Kenneth Cole suitcase.
She was curious what could be contained inside, and she actually pulled a little bit of the black trash bag out of the suitcase. There was such a strong odor of decomposition that she immediately stopped and notified the refuge workers.
The police, they've been expecting this because after the first Kenneth Cole bag with the legs, they suspected there was going to be more.
It was transported to the medical examiner's office in Norfolk, and that's where we actually viewed what the contents inside.
Inside this suitcase would be the torso and the head of a male. The torso is still attached with the arms and the head.
The head was wrapped in what looked like a medical blanket.
The face was somewhat identifiable, but it had been submerged for a while, so extremely bloated.
The medical examiner is able to determine that the victim's been shot multiple times. There are a couple of gunshot wounds in the torso area and one through the head.
There were 2 bullets that were recovered from the body, wad cutter bullets. And wad cutter bullets are not typically used by the average person, but they are used for target practice.
And it became a very big local story.
A student discovered a suitcase near Fisherman Island. Inside, a human head.
It's getting a lot of coverage.
It's the second suitcase in a week found near the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, and the second one containing body parts.
And everybody was waiting for the rest of the body to turn up.
Well, the third suitcase was found on May 16, 2004 in the water by a fisherman.
He saw the suitcase floating in the water. This third suitcase that had been in the water the longest did have some growth on it from floating in the water for so long.
This suitcase contained the pelvis, so from the waist down to above the knees. Authorities realize they have to figure out who it is.
Anytime you find an unknown body, the first thing you're going to do is look into missing person cases to see if the profile matches anyone who's currently missing.
Because of the naval bases in the area, they're checking military records. They're checking everything they can possibly think of to figure out who this person is.
One of the policemen working on it came up with the idea of getting a sketch artist in.
I immediately took photographs to our sketch artist, and she was able to do a sketch for us, and we eventually released it to the media.
We're hoping maybe this will give us an edge and maybe identify him sooner.
Right now, he's just
John Doe.
May the 21st, Sue sees the picture on TV of a sketch that they had done to find out who this person was.
Sue had been getting out of the shower one morning. The television was on, and as she was getting out, toweling off, she looks at the TV.
This is a sketch of the body that washed ashore near the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel this month.
He belongs to somebody. I mean, he's got loved ones.
She thinks, oh my God, that looks like Bill.
Sue was pretty sure that it was Bill McGuire. This is John and Sue Rice, Bill McGuire's good friends. Bill and John had been friends since their early Navy days. Bill was friends with Sue as well. Melanie knew Sue. The couples had vacationed together.
Sue immediately calls her husband to take a look, and he's not so sure it's Bill. But Sue's convinced it is, in fact, and says, please call Crime Stoppers.
He was very good friends with Mr. McGuire. He told me that Mr. McGuire lived in Woodbridge, New Jersey. He was married to Melanie McGuire, and they had 2 small children.
He wanted to know more about the dynamics of Bill, why I thought it could be Bill. And the only way that I thought it could be Bill is that, yeah, he's missing too.
John Rice had spoke to Cindy Lagash, who is William McGuire's sister.
I got a call from Cindy. She said, John, is Billy there? And I said, no, he's not. What's going on? And she said, well, Bill and Melanie got in an argument and he left and he hadn't been heard from.
He said he was leaving and he wasn't coming back. My husband was full of bluster when it came to stuff like that. He would say things like that all the time. I didn't actually believe it was the last time I was ever going to see my husband.
William McGuire had, in fact, vanished. Mr. Rice and his wife, Mrs. Rice, eventually agreed to come down to the police department in Virginia Beach and view some photos.
Bill had a little red mark right here, and that's what I kept zoning in on when I saw the picture. That's exactly what I zoned in on. I mean, I've known Bill for 22 years. I kept seeing that, and I was pretty certain that it was Bill.
Once we had a name and approximate age, we ran him through our computer system.
He ran a check on Bill McGuire, and he found that McGuire had been arrested in Virginia for a reckless driving charge in the 1980s.
His fingerprints were on file already, which made it a lot easier, and they're very quickly able to confirm that the fingerprints matched.
The man in the suitcases was identified as 39-year-old William McGuire of Woodbridge, New Jersey.
So according to Melanie, she just thinks her husband is missing, but she is about to get the news that will change her life forever.
And I said, I'm sorry to tell you, ma'am, that William is deceased. And I just burst into tears.
Now they've solved the mystery of who the man in the suitcase is. The big question is, how the hell did he get there? The Melanie McGuire story is centered around New Jersey. They lived in the working class part of New Jersey where The Sopranos took place, which was perhaps the hottest show at the time.
Woke up this morning, got yourself again.
Melanie is a Jersey girl, born and raised there. Her parents are Linda and Michael Caporero.
She's a great, great daughter, mother, friend, full of life, fun-loving, a good girl, never in trouble, never in trouble.
Always trying to help people.
She's working in the restaurants in Jersey. She's a waitress, and she met Bill McGuire. He was also a server.
Bill was known as the rude waiter because he would speed people up in a jocular way, but they loved it, and they would ask for the rude waiter.
What was he like?
Funny, clever. He had a big heart when he wanted to. He wanted all the right things.
He was very, very loyal. He was a tremendous friend. When I first met Bill, I didn't know what to make of him because he was really a practical joker and whatnot, and I thought, well, this guy could probably get on somebody's nerves with all this. But he was so funny, he just kind of overcame whatever resistance you might have to him.
Melanie was a fertility nurse when I met her. It's just so caring, so nurturing.
She was working with women who were going through really tough times, trying to get pregnant. She was very compassionate, and her patients really loved her.
What made you a good nurse?
Type A personality. The way I looked at it, I was not going to be happy with anything less than the total comfort level of my patients.
In 1998, Bill called John and I and told us that he wanted to bring Melanie down to meet us. Melanie, she's a really nice person to be around. Physically, she's beautiful. She's very smart.
She had a lot of the same sense of humor that Bill had. When Bill was making jokes, Melanie would be right in there.
He liked to razz people. She would razz him right back. He really was crazy about her.
What was your relationship with Bill like in the beginning?
In the beginning, it was the challenge, it was the chase. It was, we had a bit of a tempestuous relationship even before we got married. We would break up, get back together.
Bill and Melanie dated for quite a while. They were crazy in love at first, but it quickly became tumultuous. There were infidelities, they'd go back and forth, they'd fight. I think they liked the drama of it.
I think she thought she could make a difference in his life. I think she thought that she could maybe change him, make him happy. She truly did love him.
You guys want some more champagne? Yeah. All right, let me go get a bottle. Because there's nothing in there, is there?
They got married in 1999. It was probably one of the most extravagant weddings we've ever been to.
Mr. and Mrs. William McGuire.
Melanie on her wedding day looked absolutely gorgeous, angelic, just perfect.
Both Bill and Melanie seemed like they couldn't have been happier.
She was a little naughty.
He was marrying a girl that he absolutely loved in a way that maybe he hadn't loved anybody before.
Bill, did you put your hand up? This is the last time Bill's going to have the upper hand.
Bill McGuire got a $65,000 a year job with the New Jersey Institute of Technology.
Bill and Melanie settle into a rented townhouse in Woodbridge, New Jersey.
Woodbridge is a sprawling, densely populated township on the suburban end of New Jersey's industrial flatlands. If you're going down I-95, you're taking exit 11 to get off to Woodbridge.
We were both happy, new parents, and then things changed drastically.
He had a dual personality. He could be very likable, and then on the other hand, he'd be very calculating, manipulate you.
He had always had issues with gambling, and he would go through periods where he would go down to Atlantic City a lot.
There were times that he would just take off to AC and gamble, and you wouldn't hear from him, wouldn't know what was going on.
He found he could make some money gambling. There were good times with that, and there were bad times, and there were a couple of times I put my foot down, and I said, that's it, no more. So then he would get involved in the stock market. He wanted what he wanted, and he couldn't get it fast enough. And with that came frustration, and eventually that frustration became directed at me. There was one particular argument over the phone where he had gotten stopped for a traffic ticket. He had an absolutely atrocious driving record. So I started to argue back, and the next thing coming out of his mouth is, when I get home, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to smash your face in. It's very difficult for me to think back on it because I actually drove off in the middle of the night, and I had left and I should have stayed gone.
Why did you stay?
I wasn't strong enough to leave.
Did you love him?
I did, and even though, now at this point, bear in mind, I'm having an affair.
What appealed to you about Brad Miller?
He was just very, very tender. I really tried to fight it, but I couldn't fight it.
Life for the McGuires is getting a little more complicated, and then one night, it all erupts.
Bill was probably the most streetwise person I've ever known, and I can tell you he never saw it coming.
Melanie is loving, caring, funny, considerate. We just clicked right away, to the point that I asked her to be in my wedding when I got married.
Love is always patient and kind. It is never jealous. Love is never boastful or conceited, and is not resentful. Love takes no pleasure in other people's sins, but delights in the truth.
In June 2001, the McGuires were already married for a few years. And even though there was some friction in the marriage, Melanie McGuire decided to have another child.
Little does her husband know just how ill-timed this pregnancy is. Not only is Melanie about to have their second child, she's also having an affair.
Dr. Bradley Miller was a partner in RMA Associates, and Melanie was working as one of his nurses.
He was so kind. I'd come back to my desk after a long meeting with a patient, and there'd be lunch sitting on my desk waiting for me. You know, there was always a little bit of flirtation, banter back and forth.
Melanie was about 38 weeks pregnant, and things changed between her and Dr. Miller.
I was about to go out on maternity leave, and I was sitting actually in his office at his desk. I just mentioned I have a pinched nerve in my neck, and he put his hands on my shoulders and started to rub my back. I really tried to fight it because this was not going to be good. This was not going to be good for anybody, but I couldn't fight it.
After Melanie came back from maternity leave, she and Dr. Miller started a full-blown affair, and it seemed like they were falling in love with each other, although they were both married with young children.
Shortly after my second son was born, that's when things began the final descent downhill, if you will.
Melanie and Bill moved to the Woodbridge apartment. This is a townhome. They don't own it, they're renting it.
He was constantly looking at homes. He wanted to end up buying a house before he turned 40.
He did want to move down here to Virginia Beach. We took pictures of houses in our neighborhood, but Melanie just would not hear of it.
They ended up putting a really sizable deposit down on a very nice home in New Jersey.
It was a very nice house. It had quite a bit of land. It was a $500,000 home.
It was very contradictory as she's becoming closer to Dr. Miller, but she's going along with Bill's idea of buying a house.
The marriage wasn't going well at all. So why were you buying this $500,000 house together then?
The idea for me was we had a chunk of money, cash, that we were putting down on this house. In the past, we'd come to points where we had been in similar situations, and he would, ultimately something would happen and he would go and gamble the money away. I figured this at least was an investment.
On April 28th, they're due to close on the house at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and she's in constant touch with Dr. Miller, who's pleading with her not to buy the house. He wants to be with Melanie, and he sees a future life with her.
And Melanie told him that, you know, not to worry about it, it's gonna be okay, I'll take care of it.
After they close on the house, they go back to their rented townhouse. Bill is so excited. He calls John Rice. John said that Bill had never been happier. The last person Melanie speaks to that night is Dr. Miller. She tells him, look, we've closed on the house. Bill's had some red wine. He's asleep on the couch, but when he wakes up, we're going to sort this out, and I'm going to tell him I want a divorce.
Melanie described the events that would happen later on as a big fight.
You and Bill had a horrible fight, yes?
Correct. We fell asleep on the couch, woke up early morning hours, and it was never a bad time for an argument. We're talking probably 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And it starts on the house. I settled for that house. The hell are you talking about? You settled for that house. It's a $500,000 house. That's not what I wanted.
Melanie says that Bill turned around and said, what I really wanted was a house in Virginia for cheaper, but you refused to let us do that, and so I have to settle. And she says this turns into a very heated argument.
From there, things became more physical.
How physical? In what way?
He shoved a dryer sheet in my mouth. He had a thing about dryer sheets.
The story that Melanie tells about a fight that seems to escalate over a dryer sheet is the same story she told us back when we first spoke with her.
We're still arguing, and there's the laundry basket, and there's a dryer sheet just hanging out of one of the baby's sleeves. He hated them. He thought it was lazy that I wouldn't stand there and put in the liquid fabric softener, and yeah. And it went out of control. This was the type of mother I was, that I would leave this sheet in there for my baby to possibly choke on. Before I know it, I'm up against the wall, and the dryer sheet is being shoved into my throat. And then he just smacked me.
In the face?
Yeah, open hand, because he probably would have broken my cheek if it had been a closed fist. And I looked down, and there's my 2-year-old. I grabbed the baby and went to the bathroom right behind me and shut the door. I just wanted away from him at that point. He said he was leaving and he wasn't coming back, and I could tell my children why they didn't have a father.
Did he say this to you through the bathroom door?
Yeah, through the bathroom door the entire time. I imagine he was packing things and leaving. He was up and down the stairs a lot, but every trip back and forth berating me.
What's the last thing you remember saying to him?
Stop. Stop.
Melanie said he'd driven off, and she presumed he was in Atlantic City.
He would have been back. He would have been back. I knew it.
But this isn't just a few days that Bill McGuire is gone. We're talking weeks.
What bothered me was that Melanie never reached out and said, hey, Bill's missing.
She never reported her husband missing, and it's almost 30 days.
The fact that we never heard anything from her was deeply suspicious to me.
Love is always ready to excuse, to trust, to hope, and to endure whatever comes. Love does not come to an end. This is the word of the Lord.
In the early morning hours of April 29th, 2004, Melanie McGuire said that she and her husband Bill had a violent fight and that he left and she never saw him again.
Melanie says the next day she got her kids up, she took them to daycare, and she started trying to figure out how she was going to move on with her life without Bill.
And during this, the next day, the day after that, you didn't hear anything from him?
No.
Did you try calling him directly?
No, because this is what used to happen when we fought. You know, I'd call, whether it was to tell him off or to try to apologize or what. We just end up getting back into it again. I'm done now. I'm done.
She retains a divorce attorney, and at this point, she does tell the divorce attorney that she has not seen her husband in a few days. And according to Melanie, the attorney advised her not to file a missing persons report.
My heart broke for her. She didn't deserve, nobody deserved that. But I told her that, you know, she needed to think about herself right now. She needs to protect herself.
I called a business associate of mine who was an attorney. She said, you need to get a restraining order.
State your full name.
Melanie Lynn McGuire.
She had to go in front of a judge and give sworn statement about the incident that happened.
Tell me what happened that brought you to court today for a temporary restraining order.
My husband and I closed on our first house on Wednesday.
That should be a positive thing, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it should. He's been behaving really erratically.
Ms. McGuire, you're safe here. Don't worry.
Melanie explained to the judge how Bill had been violent with her.
Did he hit you, ma'am?
No, not until, well, I don't mean to sound like I had absolutely no part in this. I said some not nice things and slapped me.
As part of the questions, Melanie was asked by the judge if she owned any firearms.
Do you know if there's any weapons?
Not to my knowledge.
This is a sketch of the body that washed ashore near the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel this month.
We're hoping maybe this will give us an edge and maybe identify him sooner.
About a month goes by between the time that Bill disappears and when Sue Rice identifies Bill McGuire after seeing the sketch on local TV. The next thing police have to do is notify Melanie McGuire of the death of her husband.
Melanie was asked to come down to the police station.
The officer came out and he says, "Is your husband William McGuire?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I'm sorry to tell you, ma'am, that William is deceased." And I just burst into tears.
But there's one thing she never asked. How was Bill McGuire murdered?
They did not tell her how and the condition in which he was found.
That would be one of the first questions that I would ask.
The next step was that the Virginia police wanted to speak with Melanie. Melanie agrees, but she brings her divorce attorney with her and another criminal attorney in that practice.
Conducting an interview with the victim's wife with two attorneys present is highly unusual. First time I have ever had that happen to me. She was nervous, she was visibly shaking, she made expressions like she was crying, but she never had a tear in her eye. I asked her if she had any luggage, and she informed us that they didn't have any matching luggage.
The next day, Melanie told detectives she suddenly remembered that the McGuires did own a matching set of designer luggage.
I showed her a picture of one of the pieces of luggage that we recovered in the bay, and she identified that as belonging to them.
They asked what kind of person Bill was, and she said he was the kind of person that had a knack for pissing people off.
She asked us, where did we find her husband's vehicle at? I told her at that point we hadn't found her husband's vehicle. And she said that probably a good place to look would be Atlantic City, New Jersey. She also informed us that her husband had a gambling problem.
Did he get involved with the wrong people? That's what I would have to believe, that he had gotten himself into something, and Bill always thought he could handle everything.
He was always into some kind of deal, so I think maybe this deal was his last deal.
After the interview was done that evening, we also conducted a search at their old apartment building. The apartment was empty. She had already moved out.
They asked him about Bill's possessions and his clothes.
We discovered that Miss McGuire had already given all of her husband's belongings away.
Virginia Beach detectives find out that Melanie McGuire had given most of Bill's belongings away to a friend's cousin, and they wanted to track that man down. Eventually they did and found out that most of Bill's clothing was still in black trash bags, much like the bags that contained Bill McGuire's body parts.
The garbage bag, by sight, looked identical.
Things are starting to make sense with the detectives. There's the black trash bags, and there was also the hospital blanket that the head was wrapped into. And they're thinking, well, Melanie McGuire is a nurse. That's kind of an odd coincidence.
At Melanie's suggestion, detectives start to search Atlantic City for Bill's car. And lo and behold, that's exactly where they find it.
The Atlantic City forensic unit processed Mr. McGuire's vehicle. They took photos, they fingerprinted, they vacuum cleaned the floorboards.
The body was released to Melanie on a Tuesday. Immediately she had him cremated. And the funeral lasted all of 10-15 minutes at the most. She called the following evening after the funeral, and at that point I just kind of blasted her. I just told her, I said, Melanie, Bill deserves so much more. And Mel just said, well, I'm a single mom now, and now I've just got to get on with my life. I said, well, no, the next thing is we've got to figure out who did this to him. And after I got off the phone, I remember hanging it up, and I said, John, she did it. She did it.
Everything pointed to Melanie McGuire.
Through wiretapping her phones, the police discovered the relationship that she was having with Dr. Miller.
It's a eureka moment because it provides motive.
I've told them everything that I know, but they're, they just don't.
They want you to break.
What's the last thing you remember saying to him?
Stop. Stop.
People like to believe that someone was capable of committing this type of murder.
Accused of cutting up his body and throwing it into the Chesapeake Bay.
That the person who did that would look like a monster. But sometimes killers look just like Melanie McGuire.
Is there anything else you're not telling me? Like what? Like I killed somebody? Did you? No. But thanks for asking.
A scorched earth investigation was conducted, and the lack of evidence is resounding.
The evidence in this case points to a well-organized, meticulously planned execution of a murder.
Computer searches that said how to murder someone, how to poison someone. Basically, multiple searches about how you kill someone.
I don't get to be an evil genius and an idiot at the same time.
I believe that Melanie was wrongfully convicted.
Who do you think killed your husband?
Melanie McGuire, once a married mother to 2 little boys and a fertility nurse, is today a 47-year-old inmate at the Edna Mann Correctional Facility in Clinton, New Jersey.
In here, guilt and innocence is irrelevant in day-to-day life. I have 6 numbers and a letter after my name, the same as the woman on one side of me and the same as the woman on the other side of me.
After Virginia Beach exhausted their investigation, they realized all signs pointed north to New Jersey.
My name is Patty Prezioso. I was the lead investigator in the Melanie McGuire investigation and prosecution.
Patty Prezioso was a very driven and highly successful Assistant Attorney General in New Jersey.
You let the evidence guide you and you follow it until it's clear what happened.
She was extremely competent, and it was obvious.
The task force had local police, state police, the Attorney General's office. They decided to treat this case with top priority.
It was clear that he had been shot, and trying to find out if any of the people close to Bill owned a gun was a top priority.
The detectives don't find any record of Melanie buying a gun in New Jersey, so they decide to check Pennsylvania.
They knew that Pennsylvania was close, and a lot of people will go to Pennsylvania for firearms because the gun laws are more lax. There's less of a waiting period, and so you can go in and essentially walk out the same day with a firearm.
It turned out that when the record check was done with Pennsylvania, a record came back that Melanie McGuire had purchased a gun.
I remember plain as day when she came in, because not many women come into the shop. She filled the forms out, and then when she wrote down her occupation, that she was a nurse, that stuck in my mind, because I guess that was the first time I ever sold a gun, you know, to a nurse.
Melanie bought a Taurus 38 Special, and she bought wad cutter bullets.
And that gun was purchased just 2 days before Melanie McGuire said her husband went missing.
And remember, early on, Virginia detectives talked to Melanie, and she never mentioned anything to them about buying a gun.
I had informed my attorneys of the purchase of the gun, and they said, well, you know, if they ask, don't lie, but don't offer any information. And they never asked about a gun.
Melanie bought the gun because Bill wanted her to buy the gun. She could get it, he wanted it. What he wanted, he got.
Because Bill McGuire had a felony conviction stemming from his horrendous driving record, he was barred from purchasing firearms.
You say your husband asked you to purchase the gun, but you purchased a gun just 2 days before your husband went missing.
Of course, it's a coincidence. However, he was on me for a while about that, about trying to get that. And if something was happening, if he was in some sort of trouble, that may very well have been the reason why he was so intent on getting it.
Once the police really honed in on Melanie, they began wiretapping her phones.
Hello. Hi.
The surveillance was so intense that over a 40-day period, they recorded 500 hours of her phone calls.
Every time you get your head back above water. Yep. And that hand reaches out from beyond the grave.
A lot of those calls were very cryptic.
Hey.
How you doing? I spoke to, what's his name, about shipping?
Alex.
I didn't want to say name. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
She used the phrase a lot, being cut off at the knees.
At least meet with a lawyer ahead of time who might cut it off at the knees.
Doesn't that look suspicious?
It doesn't matter what it looks like.
She was a little salty. That was her personality, though. She was a Jersey girl.
A lot of them were to her boyfriend, Dr. Bradley Miller.
It was very clear right from the beginning that the relationship with Dr. Miller was different. There was a change in her voice. It was a softer tone.
It's a eureka moment when they realize that she's having an affair because it provides motive. Dr. Miller also becomes a suspect. So one night when Dr. Miller was leaving work, he was going to his car. The detectives came out to confront him.
Dr. Miller was adamant that he had nothing to do with any crime and he didn't know anything about this. And so I think the police said, well, prove it. You know, if you're willing to wear a wire, we'll believe you.
It is now 2:30 p.m., May 31st, 2005. Brad Miller making an outgoing call to Melanie McGuire.
Hello?
I've told them everything that I know. But they're, you know, they just don't.
They want you to break.
I mean, if you want us to stick together, I gotta know everything now, before this goes any further.
What do you mean you have to know everything now?
I mean, there's no other secrets between us, right?
That I can think of.
You swear you had nothing to do with us?
Yes.
And your children's lives. Because I'm standing by you.
Yes.
In those intercepted phone calls, another friend she was speaking to was Jim Finn.
Melanie met Jim Finn in nursing school, and Jim admittedly had a crush on Melanie.
But once she left nursing school, she never talked to him again. You know, that was it until February 2004, and she suddenly got in touch with him again.
When she needed something, he was someone that, you know, she could manipulate, and she knew he was a lover of guns.
The police also approach Jim Finn because they find that before Bill disappeared, she's been talking to him about the firearms.
She said to him, hey, I need to talk to you. There's some weird stuff going on here, and Bill is acting weird.
Jim, who really still holds the torch for Melanie, and Melanie knows that, says, well, maybe you should get a gun to defend yourself.
Investigators pick up Jim Finn, who also allows them to record his conversations with Melanie. And once they hear what's on those calls, they're satisfied Finn knew nothing about the murder.
The reason I asked you about buying a gun is because my husband wanted one.
He wanted one?
Yeah. Not only did he want one, I bought one for him.
Why didn't you tell me?
At the time the detective spoke to Jim Finn, he had no idea that Melanie McGuire had purchased a gun. He was surprised.
Is there anything else you're not telling me?
Like what? Like I killed my husband.
Did you?
No. But thanks for asking.
Melanie never wavers on whether or not she was involved. It is always a hard no.
I want you to tell me the truth.
I'm telling you the truth. I did not do it.
She was under a microscope. Everything she did was being watched. Everything she said was being listened to.
Melanie does something that most people would find a little suspicious.
Investigators start looking at her E-ZPass records. They notice trips to Atlantic City.
She knew that Bill McGuire's car was in Atlantic City because she put it there. That requires 2 drivers. So that means someone helped her.
What investigators find in Atlantic City has them wondering, did Melanie have an accomplice? And if so, who was it? The next set of clues in the mystery of who killed Bill McGuire leads investigators to a 170-mile stretch of toll road, the Garden State Parkway. With Melanie now the prime suspect, detectives start pulling her records. They try to track her movements in the days around her husband's disappearance. And one of those is her E-ZPass statement.
So when investigators start looking at her E-ZPass records, they notice that there were charges for 2 trips to Atlantic City.
On April 30th, 2004, just 2 days after the fight Melanie said that she and Bill had, Melanie does something that is very odd and most people would find a little suspicious.
I'm starting to become more actively angry at him. And I'm thinking, that son of a bitch, I know where he is.
According to Melanie, she decides that he's probably in Atlantic City gambling, so she's going to drive down there and she's going to look for his car.
Absolutely not rational, but get in the car and go down there. And I'm driving down, and I take the first pass on this highway, and I see a dark sedan. There's no way. There's no way. And lo and behold, there it is.
Once Melanie spots Bill's car from the highway, she decides she's going to move his car. Melanie says in the past, when they're angry at each other, it's a way of messing with each other, I guess you could say.
Pull off onto a little side street, and I parked my car, and it was like Mission Impossible. Scooted up to the car, got in, started it, and drove away.
And where'd you put it?
What I believe to be the Flamingo Hotel.
What Melanie said was, I was going to move his car to the seediest part of town, the most annoying for him to find.
that just didn't make any sense. That he was physically abusive to her, but then she goes to mess with a car with a guy that she claims she doesn't want to be around.
It sounds beyond ridiculous sitting here saying it, and I acknowledge that, and I can't, you know, it's the truth.
It's an incredible story, meaning it's just not credible.
We believe she was planting his car in Atlantic City. She was trying to create an illusion that Bill McGuire was still alive. That requires two drivers. So certainly that means someone helped her. Someone had her Pathfinder, and she was driving Bill McGuire's car. They put the car at the Flamingo Hotel, and then she went home with the person driving her car.
And investigators thought they'd struck pay dirt when they discovered that hotel's parking lot had surveillance cameras.
In truth, of course, the footage did not capture who the driver was.
The surveillance video from the Flamingo Hotel actually showed the victim's vehicle being pulled into a parking space. Because of the darkness and the glare and the background lights, you could not actually see the person that was occupying the vehicle.
There was another inexplicable road trip, this time to Delaware, 5 days after her husband went missing.
She had shared with Dr. Miller that in the early morning hours of May 4th, she was actually furniture shopping.
Investigators think that this Delaware furniture trip is really just a ruse.
That same road would have taken her to the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel.
Normally, someone would take the New Jersey Turnpike to go over the Delaware Memorial Bridge, picking up Route 13, which runs south to the Chesapeake Bay Bridge and Tunnel.
Patty Precioso says that Melanie actually left the night before from New Jersey, drove Bill's remains to Virginia.
We believe that that was when she took the suitcases with Bill's remains and got rid of them in the Chesapeake Bay. And the first suitcase turned up the very next day.
But of course, Melanie thinks this theory is preposterous.
Virginia Beach is another 450 miles from Delaware. So, I mean, you're talking about hours, and there just isn't enough time.
And why would she drive all the way down to Chesapeake with the body parts in the car, thinking, I'm not going to get stopped, I'm not going to break down? What a chance that is. You know, I mean, you can't stop on a bridge and open a window and throw 3 suitcases out.
Maybe if it was one of these pieces of circumstantial evidence for which you might have a reasonable explanation for 1 or 2, but we're talking a large amount. You can't have reasonable explanations for all of them.
It's a mountain, and it's a lot of coincidences, and that's absolutely.
But coincidences don't always make for the best evidence. And detectives were still searching for any physical evidence that would link Melanie McGuire to her husband Bill's murder.
Where is the proof? Where is the forensic evidence?
The task force is convinced that Bill was murdered and dismembered at their townhouse in Woodbridge, so they concentrate on that.
They went back 4 to 5 times to search for any evidence.
They did everything that you would typically think of, right? They brought in the luminol, pulled down parts of the walls, they pulled out the piping, pulling floorboards up. They really turned this place upside down a number of times.
They were trying to find bullets, traces of blood, and nothing ever came up.
Couldn't find any forensic evidence whatsoever to establish that this was a crime scene.
I don't know how you would dismember a body and effectively clean that up.
Despite that glaring lack of physical evidence, investigators still believe the circumstantial evidence is enough, and they arrest Melanie McGuire.
So surreal. Day like any other, getting the kids off to daycare.
We surveilled her to the school, waited for her to drop her children off.
Walking out of the building, I'm not even off the curb. Melanie McGuire, can you come with us, please? I knew.
2 years and 10 months after the first suitcase washed up, the trial against Melanie McGuire commences in Middlesex County, and it was a sensation.
The evidence will show that while Bill was engrossed in purchasing the house, the defendant was very busy planning his death.
There is no proof that Melanie McGuire murdered her husband.
The prosecutor said either Melanie McGuire is guilty or she's the unluckiest woman in the world.
On Monday, March 5th, 2007, 2 years and 10 months after the first suitcase had washed up in the Chesapeake Bay, Melanie McGuire went on trial for her husband's first-degree murder.
This was a case that had garnered a lot of media attention in New Jersey. It had all the elements that it was going to be a salacious trial.
The judge let us know that the trial was going to be televised.
Let's bring a couple of experts into the conversation to help us sort through yesterday's evidence.
It made people act differently.
I think Melanie loved the idea that she was the center of attention.
She seemed very relaxed, much more relaxed than I would have been.
It was a double-edged sword, because if she sat there, more stoic, she looked nasty or she looked mean. And then when she was being more upbeat and talking to people, oh, well, she's joking around at her own trial. There was nothing she could do that wasn't going to be criticized.
By the time Melanie McGuire gets to trial, she's hired Stephen Turano and Joe Tacopina to represent her. Joe Tacopina was a high-profile celebrity attorney.
Joe Tacopina.
Joe Tacopina.
Joining me now, Joe Tacopina. He's the attorney for Alex Rodriguez.
He feels just as comfortable in front of a TV camera as in front of a jury.
A scorched earth investigation was conducted, and the lack of evidence is resounding.
The evidence in this case points to a well-organized, meticulously planned execution of a murder.
Is that a fair description of you? Were you somebody, if you were going to do something, you were going to do it all the way?
Correct. And I would counter that argument with, if that's the case, then I would have been sure to not include blankets that could be traced to me, my own luggage. I don't get to be an evil genius and an idiot at the same time.
They're not going to be able to tell you where William McGuire was killed, how he was killed, when he was killed.
The defense were really trying to play to the jury that Bill was a major gambler and he may have owed thousands and thousands of dollars.
He was a big gambler because he gambled beyond his means. When you have money out on the street and you're behind and you're not making payments, you know what happens? You get shot here and you get shot here.
As prosecutors start laying out what they believe Melanie McGuire did to Bill, it all starts with something they found in his car after it was processed in Atlantic City.
When investigators first recovered Bill's car, they found a bottle of chloral hydrate, a red liquid, and also a syringe in it.
State's Exhibit 983. Do you recognize that?
Yes, that's the vial we dispensed the liquid in.
Chloral hydrate is, have you ever heard the term slip somebody a Mickey? It's the Mickey. It's what it is, it's almost like a knockout drug.
They do a lot of investigating on this chloral hydrate, and eventually they find out that it was purchased the morning that Bill disappeared.
Somebody dropped off this prescription for chloral hydrate at the Walgreens pharmacy, which is just down the road from where Melanie's children went to preschool.
But the prescription pad was that of Dr. Brad Miller, who was Melanie's boss. So the light bulb goes off and they're thinking right away, clearly Melanie had access to this prescription pad. She used it, she filled it.
Chloral hydrate was necessary for this defendant to have control, and even more importantly, it was necessary to her that Bill McGuire had no control. Dr. Miller looked at the prescription and he said, "That's not my signature, and it appears to be Melanie McGuire's handwriting."
Prosecutors also focused on what they said Melanie was doing in the days before her husband's disappearance. For that, they looked at the McGuire's home computer.
We had it forensically examined, and it really was just astounding seeing what the internet searches were for. Can you describe the searches that you recovered?
How to purchase guns illegally, how to commit murder, and undetectable poisons was searched.
It didn't look good. It looked like someone was searching how to, sedate someone or how to kill them.
I'm a nurse. I was a nurse. And I don't need to look up things like that. If I wanted to look for something like that, I have a PDR, Physician's Desk Reference. I have a book that I can look in that doesn't leave an internet history.
But both Melanie and Bill use this computer. So it's really hard to figure out who was searching these things.
Now, you have absolutely no idea of knowing who actually conducted the searches that you talked about, correct?
No, I don't.
One of the things we can say for certain is that your husband didn't commit suicide. He didn't shoot himself. He wasn't able to carve his own body up. And yet there's a suggestion from the defense that some of the online searches were things that he was in fact doing, not that you were doing.
It wasn't me.
Although investigators found no physical evidence in the McGuire's home, they did find something significant in Bill McGuire's car.
After Bill's car was recovered in Atlantic City, our criminalist was able to locate several pieces of small flesh. These pieces of flesh are an artifact of Bill McGuire's body being disarticulated. The phrase was used, human sawdust.
Human sawdust is a term that did not exist until this case, as I understand it.
I found particles that, to me, look like it could be possibly human tissue.
DNA results indicated that the flesh belonged to Bill McGuire.
What this really was a few pieces of microscopic skin cells that were a little bit deeper than the skin we passively shed.
Could those tissues, the tissue that you looked at, be shed from a live human being?
It cannot be shed from a live human being. It's not a typical shedding process at all.
Their theory was that this nurse, who was kind of so meticulous, had somehow just forgotten to wipe the bottom of her shoes, that she accidentally tracked these human sawdust particles of Bill's body from the house to the car.
Thank you, Your Honor. There were 81 witnesses in 7 weeks. Good morning, Dr. Miller.
Good morning.
Dr. Miller was the testimony that everyone was most anticipating. He was going to be the big star of the trial.
I was having an affair, and my whole life turned upside down.
Were you in love with the defendant?
Do you want to call your next witness, please?
Yes, Your Honor. The state calls Dr. Bradley Miller.
The most anticipated day of this trial is when the man whom Melanie McGuire had a 3-year affair with, Dr. Bradley Miller, took the stand.
Everybody knew that that was the prosecution's star witness, and the court was filled.
And when you saw him, what was your feeling?
How could you? How could you?
Dr. Miller was in a very difficult spot. He and his family had gone through a very difficult time, and it was just made clear to him, just take a deep breath and make sure you tell the absolute truth. Can you describe to the jury what was your relationship with her?
We worked together. She was an excellent nurse. She took very good care of the patients. They all loved her.
Sir, did there come a time when your relationship with Miss McGuire got more intimate?
Yes, it did. It was towards the end of her second pregnancy. She was about 38 weeks pregnant. And before she went on maternity leave, we had oral sex in the office.
So not proud of that.
It has to be pretty hard to hear it come out in court.
Hard for me to hear it, hard for me to think, oh my God, my parents are hearing this, my 84-year-old grandmother is hearing this.
Were you in love with the defendant?
Yes, I was.
Had the two of you discussed future plans together?
Yes, we were hoping to be together in the future.
If we do make it through this, I'll just have to take whatever money I can get and get away.
With Dr. Miller on the stand, prosecutors were able to score some points because there were certain things that Melanie never told Dr. Miller.
Did the defendant ever tell you that she purchased a gun?
No, ma'am. I had no knowledge of her purchasing a gun, no.
Did the defendant ever tell you that she went to Atlantic City and parked her husband Bill's car at the Flamingo Hotel?
No, she did not.
Did there come a time when the defendant shared with you that she had done that?
Yes, and I asked her, well, why didn't you tell me this sooner? And she told me that she didn't want me to be upset, that she's going back to find Bill, to bring him back, and rekindle the relationship.
We looked very closely at Dr. Miller. There was no evidence connecting him with this crime.
This is in reference to consensual recordings between Brad Miller and Melanie McGuire.
You agreed to consensually record a conversation with the defendant.
Yes, I did.
Prosecutors really wanted the jury to hear those intercepted calls so they could get a sense that maybe her desire to be with him was the motive for the murder.
During the calls, Dr. Miller spoke about their future together, probably prompted by detectives.
After a divorce, and she gets half the money, I mean, it'd still be something to live on.
The understanding between us had always been that the children came first. And he starts talking about divorce and a future and moving forward, and I even say on the tape, why are you talking like this all of a sudden?
I'm confused because you've been the one to stress to me that we have to wait and see how everything plays out.
The defense was also able to score some points with those recordings, which called into question Dr. Miller's character.
At the time of those secret recordings, he was still having an intimate relationship with her.
After you tape recorded her, sir, you then had additional intimate relations with her, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you tell her that, by the way, that you had tape recorded her?
No, I did not.
I think that was damaging to his character and was a very big turnoff to the jury.
Have you ever had contact again with Dr. Brad Miller?
No. No. After the day he testified, I haven't laid eyes on him since.
You have no desire?
It's tough. That was a tough betrayal to swallow.
What matters is whether the state, and the burden is on me and I welcome it, whether the state has proved each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt. When you combine the computer searches, the prescription for chloral hydrate on prescription pads that the defendant used, and then you have the victim found inside their matching luggage, the bullets consistent with the gun that she purchased.
It was a mountain of evidence. There's no question in my mind that she did it. I also don't believe that she acted alone.
Now, who helped her?
Patty Precioso told the jury that there was a very, very good chance that Melanie had an accomplice.
Although he was never charged, investigators took a hard look at Melanie's stepfather, Michael Caporero.
The prosecutor needed somebody, so they focused in on me. Anything they wanted, we gave them. We gave them DNA, we gave them hair samples. I had nothing to do with anything involving that crime.
You don't need the precise when. You don't need the precise where.
You don't have to find that she pulled the trigger. You don't have to find that she had hands-on physically in regards to his death. Well, boy, that leaves a lot of speculation out there for the jury. You can't guess someone into prison for the rest of their life.
The jury goes into deliberation, and Melanie and her family are waiting on pins and needles.
I was very concerned. I think we all as people like to believe that if someone was capable of committing this type of murder, that the person who did that would look like a monster. But sometimes killers look just like Melanie McGuire.
The day the verdict was read, the atmosphere in the courtroom was just electric.
Has the jury reached a verdict in this case?
Yes, Your Honor.
How do you find as to the count of the indictment charging Melanie McGuire with the murder of William McGuire?
Guilty.
I just remember seeing her collapse.
I remember grabbing Joe's arm, and I remember feeling my legs just kind of go out from under me.
She's alternating between, I didn't do it.
Just beginning for us now. We'll never give up. We will never, ever give up for her until the truth comes out.
On direct appeal, we examine the murder conviction of Melanie McGuire.
This is a prepaid call from Melanie McGuire, an inmate at Edna Mahan Correctional Facility.
All right. Obviously, Melanie's been convicted. She's exhausted all of her appeals at this point. So how did the idea for this podcast come about?
Melanie McGuire was looking to speak with someone about her story because she had done really poorly in the court system, and I think she was frustrated. And after visiting with her the first time, I was like, this is a story. This is important.
I expected the worst, and what I got was just one step shy. They give the verdict, parole eligible at the tender age of 101.
It was very difficult. It was reliving it. This was the first time somebody was basically saying, we hear you.
What'd you say? Let's get to the juicy part.
I want to know, do you think she is innocent or guilty?
In the end, I believe that Melanie McGuire was wrongfully convicted.
So you believe an innocent woman is behind bars right now?
Absolutely. I believe this is a case of a wrongful conviction.
So let's talk about some of the questions you raise in your podcast, and let's begin with the gun.
The gun to this day has never been recovered.
One of the key witnesses for the prosecution was the forensic ballistic expert.
So these are two discharge bullets. They're referred to as a 38 caliber lead wad cutter bullet.
Is it possible that the gun Melanie bought is not actually the murder weapon?
I think it's probable.
No one plugged the serial number of my gun into a website to find out what the specifications were. Apparently each gun makes something called lands and grooves.
Lands and grooves are rifling characteristics that are machine pressed into the barrel of a gun. And when the bullet passes through the barrel, the same number of lands and grooves are going to be imprinted essentially onto that bullet.
There were 5 lands and grooves that my weapon was said to have made based on the company's website. The bullets that came out of my husband had 6 lands and grooves.
It was a mistake on a gun manufacturer's website. We were not gathering evidence from a gun manufacturer's website. The evidence that was at trial was from ballistic experts.
But the website was updated.
It was.
After this trial to incorporate the possibility that it could have 5 or 6.
I thought that was questionable. I think it's very questionable that for years historically it says one thing and then it's updated right after.
Let's talk about the garbage bags.
The prosecution had an expert that said that the garbage bag in which Bill's body was found in was consistent with the garbage bags that came from Melanie's apartment.
You can see these lines here. There's a straight line here, this sort of smooth line. There's also 2 other lines close together in basically the exact same position. This indicates that these 2 bags were made at the same facility on the same line within a very close proximity of time.
He ran tests, but he didn't do all the tests that you actually need to definitively say whether these bags matched. Even his own data shows that they probably weren't the same bags.
Well, there are always other tests that can be done in any analysis. Based on the testing we had conducted and the results that I observed, I felt competent at that time to conclude that the bags were produced during the same run.
They put on a really good show. And I think when you have props, 2 garbage bags, oh wow, those do look alike. And so what the jurors are listening to sounds like fact, when in reality, it's just someone's expert opinion.
There is something else that's significant that you think the jury should have heard more about that was found inside those suitcases.
If you look through the lab reports, page upon page upon page. White hair, brown hair, black hair, animal hair. I think that's indicative that there was animal hair where the dismemberment took place of Bill's body.
You mentioned that you found some animal hairs. Did you find anything that you considered of evidential value?
No.
They looked high and low to connect Melanie to some pet. And once they found that there was no way to connect Melanie to these pet hairs, it became not of evidentiary value.
Why is that? Simply because they don't match your suspects?
Those hairs should have been tested because that's a huge question mark.
Melanie did not incapacitate, shoot, use a saw to dismember her husband. You know how hard it is to cut through bone? It is physically exhausting. And also, if the crime scene didn't happen there and she's home with her children all night, where is this happening? There are just too many holes in this story.
In this case, with the mountain of evidence against her and a very complex plan, I submit to you it's amazing we know as much as we do.
This was a murder trial. It wasn't a contest to see who could outsmart the investigators, and if someone is smart enough to successfully hide a crime scene, that they win.
Did you find any evidence that exonerates Melanie, that proves her innocence?
I wish we did. I had hoped we would. I still think that we might get a tip in that direction.
What do you say to the people at home who watch this and say, how dare she talk from prison and bring this all back up again? Enough pain has already befallen her husband's family, her own sons.
There's a murderer walking around. Even if we discount what's happened to me, the killer is out there. And it's not me.
She had about as good a counsel as money could buy. She certainly had a fair and impartial jury. The fact of the matter is sometimes the evidence is such that your attorneys, no matter what you can pay them, they simply cannot overcome what you've done. So she can say whatever she wants. She's a liar and she's a killer.
Today your boys are young men?
They are.
Is there anything you'd want to say to them?
There will always be questions about this case that we may never have the answers to, like if Melanie McGuire did kill her husband, why did she drive more than 300 miles to get rid of his remains in the Chesapeake Bay? His friend John Rice has a theory.
Bill did want to move down here onto Virginia Beach. After a time, he gave up on that idea. So it almost seemed like a vindictive thing on her part to drive him down. Oh, you want to go to Virginia Beach? Here you go.
Why was it important for you to tell this story on your podcast?
A lot of people who are convicted, they'll go through the appeals process, but they won't prevail. If we can investigate this, provide any type of assistance, we're possibly remedying some of the harshest parts of our system.
There are times when podcasts and media can shine a light where what the government did was not right. This is not one of those cases. A 39-year-old man lost his life before he got to see his children grow up.
You have 2 little kids.
Yep. That's the hardest part. Knowing that when I see my children, when I hug them goodbye, it could be the last time.
Ultimately, the courts would award custody to Bill's sister, Cindy Lagoche. Melanie has had no contact with them.
Today your boys are young men?
They are.
Is there anything you'd want to say to them?
Make up your own mind. Don't accept what you're just being told on the surface. Dig.
What is your level of hope that one day you might walk out of here?
I'm terrified to hope, because to have it thwarted in here, it's absolutely soul-crushing.
Bill McGuire was the father of 2 small children. He was a brother, he was a friend, and his life got cut short.
I think Bill deserves to be remembered as a fantastic friend, a dad who loved his boys. He didn't deserve this. Nobody deserves that. No one.
Tonight, a wave of terror and murder in one American town.
And nearly all of the killings have one very unexpected thing in common: a supposed good friend. 2020 starts right now.
The first body came out after midnight, but it was only the first.
When the murder started, for the most part, they were just another murder.
Shauna Hawk, Jean Balcom, Deborah Slaughter.
Each one seen individually.
Here's another homicide.
2 murders in 2 days.
Who is African American. Caroline Love, Michelle Stinson.
Another victim to roll out.
A lot of women are in fear.
I just talked to her and now she's dead.
The patterns of women being killed didn't really add up.
Brandy Henderson and 9 others.
These 10 murders.
The murder count possibly totaling 13.
Why didn't police see it sooner?
All victims of an unknown suspect.
Whoever did this was a ghost.
Danger disguised as a friend, and his victims never saw him coming.
One, why did it take so long to see a pattern? We feel bad that we did not know that sooner.
But it wasn't just police. It was those of us in the media and I think the community.
Man, it was right there. This young mother was killed in the same manner. All had been strangled.
He looked at me and he said, "We think we have a serial killer."
You know, if you don't get him off the streets fast, he could do it again.
I was not gonna stop until I found out who did this.
If we'd only had the little pieces.
Shauna Hawk.
Had we only known what we know now.
She was one of his victims too.
So this was Shauna's first prom. Oh man. I remember the day she found the dress. Purple was her favorite color.
Shauna Hawk was a very beautiful young woman. She went to Central Piedmont Community College.
All I can tell you about Shauna is that incredible human being.
Raised by her mother, single mom at the time. She was industrious, ambitious, worked. She wanted to make something out of herself.
She was the apple of her mother's eye.
Shauna was born on December 2nd, and I was all of 18 years old. I remember when Shauna was crying, and the minute they laid her on my chest, our eyes locked, and she just calmed right down.
She was younger than me, but, you know, bossy. That's the right word for Shauna. She was bossy. Every time.
She's worried about the long hours and whether she's going to be able to keep up with her schoolwork. She actually talks with the Taco Bell manager, a guy named Henry Wallace.
I went and met him once, and he said, nice to meet you, Miss Sumter. I've hired your daughter, and I think she's going to be great on our team.
That year, February the 19th, was on a Friday.
Dee Sumter refers to that day as Horrible Friday. But it started out as just any other day at their home on Elon Street.
She said, well, I'm gone. I love you. And I said, I love you more. And then she stuck her head back in the door and she said, Mom, I love you. And I said, baby, I love you more. And then she took off.
That afternoon, Dee gets a call at work.
Her godson's mother called and said, Miss Dee, have you heard from Shauna? And I said, no. She said, Miss Dee, I'm not trying to say anything, but something's wrong. I don't know what, but something's not right.
She noticed some unusual things around the house when she came home. Her daughter's car was not there. That wasn't unusual, but what was unusual is it was a cold day in February, and Shauna's purse was in the house and her winter coat was in the house.
She's wondering, well, what's going on? Where is she?
I called her boyfriend and I said, Daryl, get over to my house, please, now. And he's just shaking his head. He said, this is baffling. I said, more than baffling. Something is definitely wrong.
And they decided to call the police and report her as missing. As they were waiting for the police to respond, Daryl decided to go looking through the house and just check.
I hear his footsteps. He walks into the bathroom.
He pulled back the shower curtain and found Shauna in the bathtub in a small amount of water, fully clothed, and she was dead.
The next sound I heard was him blood-curdling scream. He runs back down the hall. Miss Dee, dial 911. She's in the bathtub. Last thing I remember seen them push her out on a gurney doing CPR.
It was obviously too late at that point.
Subsequently, we find out that she was raped and then strangled inside of her bathtub.
And that was kind of unusual for us at the time. We did not have a lot of strangulations during that time with the homicide investigations.
Strangulation is rare. It's more commonly seen in domestic cases or cases where people have a relationship.
Murder? I couldn't hardly even spell the word murder before Shauna was murdered.
We didn't have any damage to the doors. We didn't have any damage to the windows. So we believe that she allowed the assailant to come inside the residence.
The killer was also meticulous in terms of going through the house, making sure he wiped down anything that he may have touched. So they had no DNA, they had no fingerprints. In effect, whoever did this was a ghost.
Who would want to kill this beautiful, innocent, sweet, kind, loving person? My best friend, my daughter.
We didn't find anything significant that would draw us to point to any particular suspect at the time.
She couldn't have had an enemy. She wasn't that kind of person.
So after she was found murdered at her home, the police tried to locate her car. It was not discovered for weeks, and when it was discovered, it was found in a parking lot at Central Piedmont Community College.
The front seat was pushed back, and Shauna was short. So I think the only thing they took away from that is that it had to be somebody that was taller than Shauna.
In the course of their investigation, police actually are missing something rather important. 8 months earlier, a young woman by the name of Caroline Love disappeared. And it turns out that Caroline and Shauna were friends.
Something ain't right. They need to go back and look at what happened to Caroline, because Caroline's missing and now here Shauna is dead.
What's coming is a incredibly rude awakening.
There's some decomposition on the body.
For the Charlotte Police Department.
What soon followed was a wave of death and grief unlike anything this town has ever seen.
The best way to describe Charlotte in the early 90s would be is that it was growing extremely fast.
Charlotte was at the beginning of its banking boom.
Johnson from 20.
After the Charlotte Hornets got here, I think that's when everyone started using the term world-class city. The skyline seemed like it changed every 3 to 4 months.
Charlotte was booming. A lot of steel and glass and a lot of looking upward. Maybe not enough looking down.
Police are pointing out the drug dealers.
And what was happening on the ground.
Drugs are a problem in every large city in America.
In the neighborhoods and in communities.
Police say that this is what they call a crack house.
We were headed towards one of our highest murder rates in the city's history.
On the legitimate side, banking was the growth industry. On the criminal side, drugs was the growth industry.
Gun was found behind the dresser along with the crack bag.
It was a very, very violent period of time.
Drugs and their debris were...
In fact, I would say it was the most violent period in Charlotte's history.
Members of the violent Mustang gang were arrested.
In the 90s, we were not equipped to handle the murder rate. We had maybe 8 homicide detectives, but only 6 were actively working.
It was almost like they were having to work homicides like car accidents.
It's the 90s in Charlotte, North Carolina. Skyscrapers are going up, but at the same time, a series of crimes are unfolding. 20-year-old Shauna Hawk is found strangled in her bathtub, and her friend and co-worker, Caroline Love, has vanished.
Caroline Love went missing in June of 1992.
Caroline lived in East Charlotte. I lived in West Charlotte, and we all worked together at Bojangles.
The Love sisters, Kathy and Caroline, worked at Bojangles with Henry Wallace, who was Shauna Hawk's boss at Taco Bell.
She was a really fun person. She always had like a really cute boyfriend.
she didn't show up for work.
This don't sound like her, you know? Something's definitely wrong.
I know my mom, I remember her calling like everybody. She called everybody in our family, like, have you seen her? Is she over here?
It was like she just disappeared off the face of the earth.
She was living with this young lady by the name of Sadie McKnight. Sadie McKnight and her boyfriend, Henry Wallace, helped file the report for the missing person of Carolina Love.
Kathy, Henry, and Sadie are the ones who went to the police station to file the police report.
Shauna had the news on and she said, Mommy, Caroline is missing. Something is wrong. It's not like her just not to come to work and not call me or call work or say something.
When Shauna Hawk is murdered, police don't immediately tie that to the disappearance of Caroline Love, but there is a connection.
Before Taco Bell, Shauna had worked at Bojangles with Caroline.
She and Shauna were close friends. They were in high school together. They worked together. They were buddies. They hung out together.
My mom was on it. She was like, there's no way that within a year that Caroline's missing, and then now one of her good friends is dead.
They always remained hopeful that she would be found alive and okay.
I thought so many times that she was gonna come back. So I remember even when searching for her, I had these two little dresses, and I wore them because I wanted to look nice, you know. I wanted to look nice in case she showed up.
4 months after Shauna Hawk was murdered, another young lady, Audrey Spain, turns up murdered as well.
I think this is one of my favorites.
Audrey was a free spirit. She lived life on her terms.
Spirited, adventurous, positive, a hard worker.
Audrey Spain was another young, attractive black female who also worked at Taco Bell.
I do remember receiving a call from Audrey's manager telling me that she had missed going to work that particular day and that he was concerned.
So they actually sent the manager or the maintenance people to her apartment complex, and when they entered the apartment complex, or entered her apartment, they found her deceased on the bed.
I don't know how much information they actually gave us at that time. I just remembered that she had been murdered, she had been strangled, there was a rape also.
It was devastating. It's just not something that you ever expect to have to deal with. Audrey was my younger sister, and we grew up together, so it was very difficult.
What did I miss? How did this happen? And you're totally blindsided. Yeah, totally.
The interesting thing about that crime scene was that the thermostat it was the summer months, had been turned way down.
The crime scene techs, when they got there, were shivering.
That's because the air conditioning had been cranked to slow down the decomposition process.
Apparently, her body had been there for at least 2 days.
In the first 6 months of 1993, Shauna Hawk and Audrey Spain have been strangled to death.
Before Shauna was murdered, a friend of hers, Caroline Love, had vanished. Even so, the detectives have no clue that these cases are connected.
I just don't feel like they knew. Maybe she was random, maybe not.
These cases never came together because there were other detectives working it and not just one. And so we had very little information to go on at the time to try to link it with any of the other homicides.
We just knew that we had another young black woman who is found murdered.
We have a possible serial killer working in the shadows. But do we know that? We have no idea.
In the months ahead, more Charlotte women will fall victim to strangulation and murder. But the killer will make a mistake, giving police a glimpse as to who he is. 1993 is the year of living dangerously in Charlotte.
Caroline Love, Shauna Hawk, Audrey Spain.
Peak murder rates, and somebody is killing young black women.
It was earlier this afternoon when a family friend found the body of the woman.
It was September of '93. We were called out to a home where a woman's body had been found.
When police got to this apartment off of Marvin Road, they found two very frightened children.
Michelle, yeah, I was there. Vividly remember Michelle Stinson. Here's a young woman who had been murdered inside of her own home with her children present.
Michelle Stinson was killed in front of her two children.
A friend drops by to visit Michelle.
He looked in the windows and saw one of her little boys playing and, was banging on the window.
Where's your mommy? Where is she? And they tell him, well, mommy's asleep on the floor.
And he was getting ready to leave when the little boy opened the door and he went in.
He finds her dead on the kitchen floor.
There were signs of strangulation, but her cause of death was 4 stab wounds.
As Michelle Stinson's bloodied body was taken away, those who knew her said goodbye with tears and tried to make sense of it all.
My goodness, what person, what monster could take the life of a mother in front of their children?
Police say that there is no sign of forced entry, and that indicates that perhaps Michelle knew her killer and invited him in. Despite that, they failed to find any viable leads or suspects.
Michelle Stinson's case, like Shauna Hawk and Audrey Spain, and the still missing Caroline Love, goes unsolved.
You can't even stay at home and be safe anymore. For some unknown reason, they just couldn't connect the dots.
Dee Sumter is a remarkable woman. Yes, her heart broke, but her will didn't.
Dee Sumter went on a public campaign to call attention to her daughter's death.
It's better knowing.
And she turned what was the worst possible situation into something extremely positive for this community when she, along with Shauna's godmother, Judy Williams, started an organization called Mothers of Murdered Offspring, which is still here.
I just knew I had a daughter who was murdered and it wasn't being investigated properly. I was appalled by that, angered by it, and I was not going to stop until I found out who did this.
They felt that the police department or the city didn't care enough because they were young black women.
Dee Sumter, whose daughter Shauna was on that list of victims, still wonders what if some of the faces were white instead.
Every time another youngster was murdered, there was Dee calling the press, going after the police, saying, "What are you going to do to help us?"
She was turning up the heat on the police.
They particularly attacked the police each and every day about what we were doing and what we were not doing, because they thought that we should be doing more, and we were telling them that we couldn't do any more than what we had. We were overworked and we were understaffed, but we were doing the best that we could.
Dear killer, I am the mother of Shauna Denise Hawk.
She wrote a letter to the editor calling out the person who took her daughter's life.
Something in me said he's got to have some type of a heart. Might be a dark heart, but it's a heart. Please, please, please come forward and turn yourself into the authorities so justice can be served and so you can get the help you need and so forgiveness can be given. For without this, you are eternally doomed. Can I have a moment, please?
Dee Sumter's letter appears in the Charlotte Observer. And in the same day's paper, a brief article, a woman in Charlotte found dead in her apartment. Here we go again, another victim.
In the mornings when Vanessa Mack had to go to work, her babysitter would come here to her house to pick up her 4-month-old daughter.
A young lady by the name of Vanessa Little Mack was murdered in her home.
I said, Vanessa, I said, get up, you know, like that. And then she didn't move and she didn't say anything. So I turned the bedroom light on. And I said, oh God.
Vanessa Mack was killed in February of 1994, almost to the day that Shauna Hawk had been killed a year earlier.
Blood was on her face and a towel was around her neck.
Her baby daughter, just yards away, was okay. Police believe the infant was in the home when her mother was killed.
Vanessa Mack was a hospital worker.
Just an honest, hardworking young lady doing the best that she can to provide for her family.
I don't know why they would have did it, because she was a good girl. She didn't bother nobody.
Vanessa Little Mack's cause of death was once again ligature strangulation.
There is a link to previous killings, but police don't seem to notice it at the time.
Vanessa Mack had a sister who worked at Taco Bell. So again, the correlation of another person working with somebody at a Taco Bell.
We started looking for financial card records and discovered that a bank card was missing from the scene.
They got her banking history and found that her teller card had been used unsuccessfully.
In her final moments, Vanessa Mack tricks her killer, giving him the wrong PIN to her ATM card.
She had made it up. It wasn't the correct password, so that's why he couldn't get into her account. She still fought back. She didn't give him everything he wanted.
There are security cameras on the ATM.
So we looked at the security camera footage and we could possibly say that it was a male of dark skin complexion.
But it wasn't a great picture. There wasn't a lot to go on.
The only thing you could see in the photograph was his ear.
And we did see an earring in the figure of a cross at that time.
A hoop cross earring. Only thing the photograph showed.
But that killer wearing a gold cross earring is about to make another mistake, revealing his identity.
Like a beast, sitting, waiting for a prey, just waiting to go and hurt someone.
It's March 1994 in the city of Charlotte, and someone has gotten away with murdering 4 women in a year's time.
My goddaughter was one of the victims. Shauna Hawk. She was one of his victims too.
Shauna Hawk found strangled in her home last February. And then 2 weeks ago, Vanessa Little Mack also strangled.
All black women in their 20s, all strangled to death in their own home.
Something's not right here, you know? Something is not right.
I mean, that's one question I want to have for the police department. Why hadn't they shown a real interest? And I really felt that we've been neglected.
All being investigated as seemingly unconnected. That is about to change in one single deadly day at the same apartment complex.
The Lake Apartments, and I would refer to them as the infamous Lake Apartments, because if there is any location in this town that's affiliated with these cases, that's the location.
The next victim is on March 9th of 94. 18-year-old Brandy Henderson, a young mom.
She was funny, she loved to joke around, she sang off key, but she thought that she could sing and we just let her do it.
Brandy lives with her boyfriend Lamar Woods and their 10-month-old son, Tyrese.
Brandy told me that when she had Tyrese, that she felt like her life was complete. She felt like she had made a masterpiece.
One night in March, Brandy calls her cousin George, asking him to come over and hang out.
She was like, well, I've got some Chinese food that I ordered and from takeout. Why don't you just come over? Come on over. You know, come see me. And I said, well, it's already 8 o'clock. I'm tired. I've been working all day. I got to get up early tomorrow. And she said, oh, come on.
They're talking on the phone. Then there's a knock on the door.
The phone call was interrupted, and she said someone was at the door.
And I heard her in the background saying, just make sure you lock the door behind you. I didn't worry about who was there because she said lock the door behind you, so she trusted him.
Late that night, Brandy's boyfriend comes home from work.
The first thing he notices that sort of catches his eye is that kind of like the lights are off, which is a little bit unusual because he knows Brandy is home.
He turns on the light. The apartment's been trashed.
His stereo is missing. The place has been robbed.
So he starts checking around and he finds his kid and notices the kid is not really breathing normally. So then he's like, what's going on here?
Someone has tied a pair of shorts around 10-month-old Tyrese's neck. This child is struggling to breathe.
He runs to help him. He unties the things around his neck and then finds Brandy.
Brandy was in the bedroom, lying on the bed with a ligature around her neck.
You're watching as this woman's body is being carried downstairs, knowing her child has been injured, possibly gravely, and luckily he survived.
The next morning, as soon as I turned the news on,
we don't have a significant break anywhere in the case. We're still hoping that somebody may come forward with some information.
They had a stretcher rolling across the sidewalk in front of her apartment. And I knew at that time that it was real, and I just lost it because I just could not comprehend that I just talked to her and now she's dead.
The killer stole not only the stereo, but a Pringles can of coins that Brandy had been saving up.
However, this suspect got in there. Apparently he was let in or had access to get in on his own.
Contact 60130 on tag 2. Right at this moment, detectives get an urgent radio call. They're needed back at the Lake Apartments.
Another woman is found strangled.
I could not believe that the next day we're back at the same apartment complex where another woman is found dead in her apartment. And this woman is Betty Jean Baucom. She's 24 years old. She has a 3-year-old daughter.
Betty Baucom, who lived somewhere in those same apartments, worked at Bojangles.
Betty never did anything wrong to anybody. She always trying to help people, and I mean, it just really hit us hard here.
The stuff hit the fan. It was crazy town, man. Everybody was over there. It seemed like there was 10,000 police cops over there.
I was interviewing people who were racing into the apartment complex.
We came here to make sure that my girlfriend was safe because her husband is at work and her and her daughter is home alone.
Did this concern you when you heard this?
Yes, it did. I mean, it's unbelievable.
The fear that it stoked was just insane.
I grew up in New York and I thought this was going to be like, you know, a safe haven out here. And apparently there is no safe haven anymore.
So now we have a major problem. Now we have 2 young ladies in the same apartment complex have been found murdered, and there's a lot of conversation.
I was in court and saw one of the homicide detectives, and I asked him, you know, what's going on? And that was the first I heard. He looked at me and he said, we think we have a serial killer.
Police worry this could be a serial strangler.
Betty Jean Baucom's car has been stolen.
We're looking for a vehicle now of the latest victim, and we believe the suspect has probably fled in it.
So during this time, you know, we have an APB out for Betty Baucom's car, and we're looking citywide for the car.
Police found the car in this parking lot. Actually, it's right across the street from the apartment complex where the women were found murdered.
On the floor of Betty's car is a Pringles can stolen from Brandy Henderson.
So that connects the 2 murders at the Lake Apartments. Whoever killed Betty and stole her car must have also killed Brandy and stolen her coins.
Tonight, police aren't taking any chances at all. They're setting up perimeters all around the Lake Apartments.
Investigators say they need more information quickly.
You know, if you don't get him off the streets fast, he could do it again.
Use caution, be careful, and think before you open the door.
The killer is out there somewhere, and they feel certain if given the chance, he could strike again.
Word tonight of a serial killer in Charlotte, North Carolina.
It's the shock of recognition that comes when a community realizes there's been a killer in its midst.
So now we have a major problem. Now we have two young ladies in the same apartment complex have been found murdered. The media has now been involved.
Be careful letting them into your house. If there's some doubt at all, you feel nervous with the person that may be coming to your door, don't hesitate, call 911.
Everybody's in uproar, everybody in a panic.
The city was on edge, you know, just fear all over the whole city.
It was scary. It was scary. I can remember calling some friends that I know on that side of town and say, hey, be careful.
Investigators say they need more information quickly. Young women were murdered in the same apartment complex, and their killer is still out there somewhere.
Minutes before Brandy Henderson was murdered at the Lake Apartment, she had been on the phone with her cousin George Burrell.
She said, hold on, somebody's at the door. And I heard her in the background saying, just make sure you lock the door behind you.
The day after the murder, George says he stops over at a neighbor's apartment.
As I walked in, to my left sat Henry Wallace, watching the TV. I had seen Henry Wallace at Brandy and her boyfriend's house. I had met him one time.
By daylight, detectives were back at the Lake Apartments with another murder on their hands.
The news came on. So we started watching the news, and it was about Brandy's murder.
Investigators say whoever killed these women was cold-bloodedly calm, spending a lot of time in each of their apartments.
I felt this on my shoulder. I felt a pat, like, you know, I'm so sorry. And he was looking at the TV, watching Gurney go across the sidewalk with her body, and his eyes just glow. He was just glowing, like, just, you know, like amazed, like he was excited. And I could just see that in his eyes, like he was just fixed on the TV.
Brandy Henderson's 10-month-old baby was also attacked and left for dead.
And he's like, I'm so sorry, what happened to your cousin? And Henry said, she was always there with her baby by herself. When somebody come in, she would say, lock the door behind them. I had that flashback to when I was speaking to her, and she said, just make sure you lock the door behind you. And I knew at that moment that it was him. I said, oh my word, he killed her.
George says he immediately told a police officer about his suspicion, but he says the officer blew him off.
By then, they knew that they had a serial killer on their hands, and they needed to find him quickly, but they didn't find him quickly enough.
As they're processing all of this with Betty Jean and Brandy Henderson being murdered at the Lakes Apartments, one more person is found murdered about a mile away, and her name is Deborah Ann Slaughter.
She loved to laugh. She had a very contagious laugh. She also had a beautiful voice. She and I both grew up singing in church together. I remember Boys II Men came on the radio singing The End of the Road. I just remember us going, you know, to the end of the road, and I can't let go. That was the last time we sung together.
Deborah Slaughter lived in the Glen Hollow apartments, which were the same apartments that Audrey Spain lived in.
Henry Wallace had also lived at Glen Hollow at one time, and Deborah worked at the Bojangles, same place where Henry Wallace worked.
And my mother did give us warnings. Her exact words is, you know, there's a serial killer in Charlotte, and I need y'all to be careful. And I would say to Deborah all the time, you know, be careful. I always told her to be careful. Deborah was a tough person, and she just wasn't scared of anything.
It was this last Thursday the bodies of Brandy Henderson and Betty Jean Balcom were discovered. 2 days later, Deborah Slaughter was found just a mile away.
At some point after letting this man into her home, Deborah Slaughter comes to a horrifying realization.
Once his attack was on, Deborah Slaughter made the connection between the recent murders. At that point, she said, "You're him." So Deborah did fight because Deborah knew that she was going to die.
Deborah Slaughter's case was much more violent than any of the other victims, and you could tell that there was a big struggle inside the home. She fought for her life.
Lovey Slaughter sees it every time she closes her eyes, her daughter's body lying on the dining room floor of her apartment.
When she knocked on the door just kind of pushed open, and she walked in.
And when I opened the door and saw her laid on that floor,
next thing I know, I look up and I see two firefighters bringing my mother down the stairs, and she's crying, and the first thing she said is, "Deborah's gone." She said she's gone.
You've got, oh, this person was strangled here, this person was strangled here, this person was strangled here. Huh.
Tonight, police aren't taking any chances at all.
Looking back,
the killer is out there somewhere.
For myself, as a reporter, I keep thinking, why didn't we start putting two and two together?
Go ahead, stop.
Then you have the police who are trained to do these kind of things. Why didn't they do it?
Look closely. Police say this is the face of a serial killer.
Who is this man who has confessed to the murders?
Once I touched him, so it was out of my control. It was out of my hands. So I couldn't stop it. There was no way I could stop it.
We have a possible serial killer working in the shadows.
And somebody is killing young black women. All black women in their 20s, all strangled to death in their own home.
There's some kind of a bold demon here, one like never before.
He's hiding in plain sight, and he's doing it very cleverly. He fools everybody.
He portrayed himself as the big brother, as the good friend.
And I remember him telling me, it's gonna be okay, she's gonna come back.
He hugged me. He knew he had killed her.
So he kind of walked into their life knowing that at some point he's gonna take their lives.
I didn't want to, but something or somebody was taking over my body.
He writes a name, then a second name, then a third name, but he keeps going.
He was talking about killing women like you're in some sort of boring book club.
The general tone in Charlotte was, why didn't you guys figure this out earlier?
Saying that they didn't prioritize these murders because the victims were black women.
You guys blew it. How could you miss this?
It was this last Thursday the bodies of Brandy Henderson and Betty Jean Balcom were discovered. 2 days later, Deborah Slaughter was found just a mile away.
Investigators have now contacted the FBI, trying to set up a profile of the killer.
Use caution, be careful, and think before you open the door.
We don't have a significant break anywhere in the case. We're still hoping that somebody may come forward with some information.
Charlotte police are desperate to find this killer. They do get something to work with from Brandy Henderson's boyfriend, Lamar.
We asked him who would Brandy allow into the home without any problem. And he said Henry Wallace.
Once the detective on Brandy Henderson's case got the names of who she would have let into the apartment, he went to see if any of them had any criminal history. Henry Wallace did. He had a misdemeanor larceny charge, and there was a mugshot of Henry Wallace.
That's when Detective James Stansberry, who's been investigating the Vanessa Mack case, walks into the room.
He comes in and he sees the photograph of Henry Wallace. In that mugshot, Henry Wallace is wearing a hoop cross earring in his ear.
I looked at the photograph and something hit me.
The detective remembers that from the ATM on Vanessa Mack's case.
I saw the earring with the cross.
And that's similar to the same earring that we saw on the picture of Henry Wallace's arrest photo.
I see this and say, we may have something here.
Investigators hope this car stolen from Balcom spawns new leads.
Betty Jean's car is found across the street from the crime scene, Nissan Pulsar, and that was the biggest break that they've had to date, which was inevitably what led them to their suspect.
They hit a jackpot near the trunk area of that car where they found a palm print. That palm print matched someone who was already in the system.
That palm print came back to Henry Louis Wallace.
So now we're going to look for the person, Henry Louis Wallace.
March 12, 1994, around 2 in the afternoon, Deborah Slaughter's body is found. 3 hours later, police locate Henry Wallace and place him under arrest.
And when the cops came in, he had bathroom door shut. Had my bathroom door shut. Hiding in there? Hiding in there.
Initially, he is not giving up the goods.
The police sent in literally teams of detectives trying to get him to talk. He was like, I don't know what you're talking about. They sent in 2 more. I don't know what you're talking about. Enter Detective Tony Rice.
Tony Rice goes into the room and started to talk to Henry.
And he said, Henry, you mind if we just say a little prayer together? And he actually held Henry's hand and said a prayer.
After the prayer, then Tony said, well, now, can you tell me about what happened?
Henry said, give me a piece of paper. And he started writing down all the names of the women.
He writes a name, then a second name, then a third name, and these are victims that police had already suspected him of murdering. But Henry Wallace keeps going. Another name, another name, another name. A total of 10 victims. Charlotte police are stunned.
That was the first the police knew of the depth of how many people he had killed.
Henry, if you would, go ahead and just talk up for me and state your full name.
Henry Louis Wallace.
The police decided to record his confessions.
Shauna Hawk, I really didn't have any intentions of doing what I did to Shauna. I stopped by to see Shauna one day, and she gave me a hug. And when she gave me a hug, I had her real close, and I said, I want you to have sex with me. She said, you're joking, right? I said, no, I'm not. It's not a joke.
He gave a full confession. That's very unusual. Many of them deny it to their dying day, so to speak. But Henry Wallace didn't.
I told her to get dressed. I took her to the bathroom. That's where I maneuvered the chokehold on her. And so she passed out. And I filled the bathtub with water and placed her in it.
Coldest thing I ever heard in my life. He was talking about killing women like you're in some sort of boring book club.
Henry Wallace admits he raped each of his victims before killing them, and usually robbed them.
But what's really unusual is that Henry Wallace knew his victims, and they knew him.
That's what's different. He knew them, and he had to know them. He couldn't kill a stranger, he said.
I would always hear the voices of the people that I killed. I would always see them. I would always see a shadow of them. I would always hear their voices. I would always hear the, like, laughter from them.
Shauna Hawk's mother, Dee Sumter, says that Henry Wallace actually showed up at Shauna's wake.
I'm thinking, this is some kind of a bold demon here, one like never before. Had the literal gall to show up at a service for someone that he knew he personally killed.
The thing that makes my blood run cold and just send shock shivers up and down my spine is the fact that I saw him after Shauna was murdered, and he expressed his condolences, and he hugged me, told me how sorry he was.
And he knew he had killed her.
I wanted to tell her so bad, Dee, I killed your daughter. But I was so scared. I was so scared. I couldn't do it.
I mean, to be hugged by your child's murderer, showing up and sending his sympathies, that is some cold, calculated stuff going on right there.
We begin to get a bit of a portrait of Henry Wallace emerging from the photos shown in court.
He had many strengths in growing up. People liked him, and he was social.
Henry was a great person, very nice guy, got along well with everyone.
Yearbook photos and schoolmates who spent time with him.
But he also had some, obviously, very lethal problems.
He would have had every opportunity in the world with any of us. He could have easily gotten any of us, but he didn't.
Was there satisfaction in that for you? I didn't want to, but something or somebody was taking over my body, and I couldn't stop, even when I tried to stop.
Police say this is the face of a serial killer, a man who choked the life out of neighbors and co-workers. His name is Henry Louis Wallace.
Henry Wallace was born and raised in Barnwell, South Carolina, a small town about 3 hours south of Charlotte.
Before he became a serial killer, Henry Wallace was a fast food manager who had served in the Navy, had been married, and then divorced.
The news of his arrest shocked his hometown.
I still have a hard time believing now that it was our Henry.
Former classmates and the high school yearbook seemed to portray a completely different image than that of a cold-blooded killer.
Henry was a great person, very nice guy.
He was a good guy. He was fun. He had the biggest smile, the biggest personality, always happy. You know, he was the first male cheerleader we ever had. I would have never guessed in a million years that Henry had any kind of issues where he would do what he's done. Never in a million years.
He would be the person who's responsible for more deaths in Mecklenburg, Charlotte, Mecklenburg than any other person that we've came in contact with.
I think the community was truly stunned. Those kinds of cases didn't happen here. Charlotte wasn't the kind of place where we would have a serial killer.
After Henry confessed to all of the murders that we believe he did in North Carolina, we began to formulate how are we going to tell the public.
Information indicates that this person was responsible for the murder of 10 women in Charlotte.
When we made the announcement, the city ate us alive. The media ate us alive.
I do remember the police coming out and saying, we have a serial killer, but you know what? Our officers did a great job.
The investigators worked tremendously hard and did an excellent job on the investigation of all of these 10 cases. We're sorry that we did not get him identified earlier.
Had we done that, then we maybe could have saved the lives of some of these women.
The general tone in Charlotte was, why didn't you guys figure this out earlier?
The community became outraged.
The police was well aware of this a long time ago.
There were some in the community who criticized the Charlotte police, saying that they didn't prioritize these murders because the victims were black women.
I sat and just cried in my heart and outside because I wanted that same energy and effort to be extended to my child.
There was not a level of caring. This is where the racial disparity comes in.
We covered Dee, we covered her press conferences. One of the things that she made everyone think about and talk about was if these had been white women who were dying in South Charlotte, each killing would have been a huge story.
Race is always a factor in criminal investigations. Until America sees that it is not a factor or we have to mention it, do an interview, race is always going to be a factor.
All these cases were professionally and competently handled. There was nothing given short shrift.
One of the other stunning aspects of this case was how well Henry Wallace knew most of his victims.
And it seems that fast food restaurants are the common thread that bind Wallace to most of his alleged victims.
Everything was right here all along. It's been right here. And they've done everything except look right here.
Obvious connections. There's that word again, connecting the dots. In my humble opinion, blatantly ignored.
It was like, you guys blew it. How could you miss this?
It's not that we missed this, it's just that we were overwhelmed with the cases.
During that 2-year period that he was killing people, there were approximately 300 people murdered.
All of those cases were on desks of 6 homicide detectives in the 90s. We didn't have the technology. We definitely didn't have the manpower, and we definitely didn't have the resources.
When Henry Wallace confessed to police, he listed names of people that investigators didn't even know had been murdered.
Well, there is one name in particular on that list that I am certain wasn't on their radar at all, and that is Valencia Jumper.
Investigators say Valencia Jumper died in her 3rd floor apartment. They say this also appears to be the unit where the fire started.
Valencia Jumper came to Charlotte. She was a student at Johnson C. Smith University.
Henry Wallace knew Valencia's sister. That was their connection.
She was found in a house that had caught fire. That didn't fit any patterns before or after.
It was ruled that maybe she was out drinking with her friends and had too much to drink, put a pot of beans on the stove to eat, and the fire engulfed the apartment.
Investigators say they suspect Valencia Jumper was sleeping when the fire in her 3rd floor apartment broke out. They say a pot left on her stove started the fire.
I went into the kitchen and I opened a can of pork and beans or something, and I put it in a pot, put it on the stove, and I turned the stove on high.
He set the whole scene up that it looked like she fell asleep while she was cooking.
And I went to her kitchen, I noticed there was a bottle of rum, 151, and I poured the rum all over her body.
He considered her to be his little sister.
There were so many things in this case that were missed by various people. The only people who didn't miss the signs were her family. And her family fought tooth and nail to say this was not an accidental fire.
After Henry confessed, the medical examiner started re-examining the facts in that case. And one of the things that stood out was there was no soot or ash or anything in her throat where she breathed in smoke.
It should have been ruled that she was dead before the fire started. This case haunts me probably the most because of mistakes that were made, that had they not been made, Henry Wallace would have been charged then. And she was victim number 5, we wouldn't have had 5 more.
Henry Wallace's confession leaves veteran law enforcement shocked and almost caught off guard. But the next thing he does is remarkable. He takes the police on a field trip.
I knew this day was coming. I mean, I knew and I wanted it to come. And there have been several times during the actual crime that I was committing, I wanted to die. I ruined everything, man.
Henry Louis Wallace knew all of his victims, and they felt comfortable with him because he portrayed himself as the big brother, as the good friend.
I was very polite. It's the only male neighbor that I would even let in when my boyfriend wasn't at home. I mean, he was a friend. I trusted him.
Henry was like the perfect human predator.
So he kind of walked into their life knowing that at some point he's going to take their lives.
You never realized what Henry was all about. And by the time you did, it was too late.
If you would go ahead and start with the first name that you put on your list there. Carolyn Love, is it?
Caroline Love.
Where did you meet Carolyn?
Caroline, I met her through my girlfriend, Freddie.
And so we go to the board and we're looking for certain names, and Carolina Love name is not on the homicide board. So why is this name on the list?
Caroline Love was a woman that went missing in June of '92. She was a friend of Wallace's girlfriend at the time.
Remember, Shauna Hawk and Caroline Love were friends and they were co-workers.
We talked to him and he was very forthcoming, and he gave us a lot of information.
I dumped her body on the left side near where a ditch kind of led from the highway back into the woods.
You think you could find it again?
I know I could.
And so we decided to find Carolina Love. We put Henry in the back of the van, and he directed us out to this remote area of the county to a field.
The investigators were told exactly where to look for another victim in this bizarre case.
And it was the skeletal remains of Caroline Love.
That tells the cops that this guy is for real. He's a killer because he's the only person who's going to know this.
We have to tell the public that this case was not a missing person, it is now a homicide.
Painful. I cried all yesterday, I cried all last night.
Caroline's family is even more devastated. This is the same man that went with Caroline's sister, Kathy, to file a missing persons report.
Caroline's niece, Sarah, was only 8 years old when her aunt went missing. And who comforted her during that time? Henry Wallace.
Then I remember being in her room with him and sitting on his lap. And I remember being sad and crying. And I remember him telling me, it's gonna be okay, she's gonna come back.
The same day that Henry is consoling Sarah, the police arrive to speak with Caroline's family. They have no idea the killer is in their midst, listening to every word.
And in talking to him, he remembered us talking to Caroline Love's family about her having an orange jumpsuit from Bojangles. He said after hearing that conversation, he decided to go back and remove that orange jumpsuit from her, because if we were looking for it, it would be easily seen by an aerial helicopter or somebody's walking by.
He returned to her body disposal site, which was outside, numerous times.
I went back a couple of times since then, so I would remember where the body was.
Caroline's family, who had held out hope for so long about the fate of their loved one, now have to face the cruel reality that her remains have been found.
You told me she would come back, but you didn't tell me she would come back like that. I mean, we didn't have anything to go back to. Her body was bones.
Back in the interrogation room, detectives ask one final question.
Is there anything else you can remember, Henry?
That's it.
Anybody else that you can think of in Charlotte or anywhere else that anything like this has ever happened to you before? You lived in South Carolina with your mom. Anything there that you remember?
One person.
Tell us about her.
Her name was Shanda Bethay. They call her Shan.
Henry Wallace confesses to police that he killed 18-year-old Tashanda Bethay in 1990 in his hometown of Barnwell, South Carolina. It's believed that Tashanda was his first victim.
She left home about 5 o'clock on the 19th, and they reported her missing on the 20th because she didn't return home.
She was walking one day. I picked her up, and I told her that we were going out to get some pot. And I pulled off to the side of the road into a little ravine area.
Tashanda's body was found 2 weeks later by people fishing in a local pond.
The autopsy results show that she was strangled.
A few days later, Henry Wallace is brought in for questioning.
He was a very strong suspect, but we had nothing on him. He covered his alibis good.
I was questioned about her death, but I did not.
After literally getting away with murder, Henry Wallace moved to North Carolina, where he would kill again and again and again.
It's absolutely devastating. You sitting there thinking the worst, hoping for the best, and that's exactly what these relatives were doing. And unfortunately, it was not a good ending.
Henry Wallace, dubbed by some in the media as the Taco Bell Strangler, confesses to killing 11 women. But the question remains, why?
Two of the FBI's most respected mind hunters want to know what's inside Henry Wallace's mind.
He had some obviously very lethal problems.
They sit him down for interviews and put it all on videotape.
It was out of my control.
For years, the FBI has been developing behavioral profiling techniques. And there's a woman named Ann Burgess, a professor and author from Boston College, who has helped them.
Until we understand what's going on in the mind of the criminal, we're going to have more and more victims.
She was one of the few women in the FBI at the time doing that work, and I thought it was time to get her story out there. So after a little bit of convincing, she agreed to write this book, A Killer by Design. Wallace is featured in the book because he was a really interesting case.
Henry Wallace was, not that we would call him atypical, but certainly very different from some of the others. People liked him, and he was social.
Burgess was tapped by Henry Wallace's defense team to do an analysis on his mind.
The jury was to decide whether he deserved death or whether he deserved life. They just asked us to do a background and present what we thought.
She and retired FBI agent Robert Ressler visited Wallace inside the jail and conducted interviews. All of it was put on videotape.
The footage was provided exclusively to ABC News 2020.
Henry Wallace was quite open in what he talked about. He had many strengths in growing up, but he also had some obviously very lethal problems.
Do you understand any of this any better since you had a chance to kind of reflect on it?
Within this shell, there are two people. One person being a chameleon. He will adapt to anything, any environment, any situation, and he's a very well respected, very well liked person. He almost lures the women in for the other person.
So he had good Henry and bad Henry. Good Henry was a friendly person that made friends very easily, dated women very easily.
But then he said the bad Henry would come out, the monster, so to speak. He came out, he was angry, he had to kill them. Why he couldn't stay good Henry for a long time, we don't know, but he just couldn't.
But what's generating the anger?
Experiences in the past.
One of the reasons that Wallace points to for committing his crimes is he did have a really tough upbringing.
Henry tells them that when he was a child, he was molested. He also reveals that he and his mother, when he was growing up, had an extremely volatile relationship.
I was terrified of my mother. Terrified.
From
the beatings.
Henry also described being constantly teased about being a cheerleader and other things.
He was teased about his size, he was teased about his color.
Wallace was trying to reshape this really terrible childhood that he had by taking out his aggressions on people that he knew as if that was a replacement for the bad situations of his past.
He married his high school sweetheart, this prom photo capturing them in happier times.
But the marriage didn't last long and ended right before he moved to Charlotte.
It all starts collapsing after the wife left him.
I grew to hate her very much. And there's still a lot of hatred inside for her. And I think that had I lived in South Carolina and not in Charlotte, she would probably be one of the victims.
Wallace did think about killing his wife, but he was not able to actually go through with it.
I think that the majority of the victims reminded me of her in some way. Or when the murder and rape was taking place, who I was seeing was her and not the victim.
After his marriage dissolved, then Henry had to move back in with his mother.
That really kind of was the straw that broke it all down. And that's when he started into his murderous behavior.
My mom was very violent, and I think more than, other than a mate in these women, I was looking for a mother as well, or traits of my mother. And they were there, and all of them.
Henry Wallace was danger disguised as a friend, and his victims never saw him coming.
They felt comfortable with him because he portrayed himself as the big brother, as the good friend.
I think that was one of his motivations in a lot of these killings, was they were women he liked who didn't like him that way.
That's a more classic kind of a type of motive, if you will, for a serial killer.
One of the biggest questions for Burgess and Ressler was, how did Henry Wallace evade police for so long?
The only time that the police were concerned when the two murders occurred on the same day. That's when Barkham and Henderson.
Same day.
Yeah. That's when all of a sudden they started seeing connections and things that had happened 20 months ago.
You've got to do the victimology first, because they would have realized that they knew each other in some capacity, and that would have been a way to then zero in on Henry.
Burgess testified for the defense, and she told the jury that Wallace, while he was committing these murders, was in an alternate mental state.
I did feel that he was not in total control of his thoughts, that he was being controlled, if you will, by the obsession.
Henry Wallace was convicted of the rape and murder of 9 women.
I think we all knew what the verdict was going to be, guilty. So the real question was, does he live, does he die?
The jury recommended death. And again, I don't think anyone was terribly surprised.
It's such a sad case. It's not like you celebrate.
I just want people to not forget, you know, what happened to these girls in Charlotte, North Carolina. We don't want people to go around and hear the name Henry Wallace and not know who he is, you know, because, you know, he was a black serial killer that killed a lot of black women. I want the world to know what happened and that these girls' lives mattered.
Finally, there's justice. But there's one more victim of Henry Wallace's rampage. The sole survivor is now all grown up.
18-year-old Brandy Henderson strangled to death.
Brandy Henderson's 10-month-old baby was also attacked and left for dead.
Henry said he got mad and said, "You got to do something with this baby. You got to shut this baby up," because Tyrese was sitting right there beside her. He was pulling on his mom, on Brandy. So he took a pair of shorts and tied around his neck until he got quiet.
I think about Brandy's child often. How do you go on with your life? How does any loved one go on with their life when something this horrible happens?
The picture that we took of him at the hospital, it's like I still see that picture in my mind every day.
After he got out of the hospital, his father took him to Chicago. And when Tyrese was 5, his father passed away.
I'm still here. If it wasn't me reading these stories, I would have thought that I had died. So I'm like, reading these, well, I know this baby died. I know this. He survived? Are you freaking serious? He's well, he has a family, he's married, he's doing something with himself.
You know those pop rock candies? That's like him. That's exactly what I can describe him as. He's a ball of energy.
I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm an entrepreneur. I try and be a great role model because I do have 3 sons.
He's been through a lot of things. He's had it rough.
He realized he never grieved for his mother, and he grew up without his mother's love.
I went through a whole grieving class. I wrote my mama a letter. I told her I was mad. I told her I was angry. I told her how much I missed her. I told her how sorry I was because I know that I wasn't doing the right things.
When I heard about his mother, inside I was crying, outside I was strong. I'm finding out more and more about the situation with his mother every day. I went and searched for it just to know, what type of woman she was and how it's instilled in him.
She was such a great mother. She would have done anything at all for him. Brandy told me that when she had Tyrese, that she felt like her life was complete.
They tell me that she was a great person. They say that she wanted the best for me. They're like, I was her masterpiece. It's like, I'm somebody's masterpiece. Like, that's a huge compliment for me.
I saw Tyrese when he was like 9 years old. We went to Chicago and visited him. But since that time, I lost track. I feel guilty about it, but I just could not stay in contact with him because I knew he would have all these questions and I wasn't ready.
After 20 years, Brandy's cousin and close friend, George Burrell, is now reuniting with Brandy's son, Tyrese.
What's up, dog? Oh, man. What's up, old boy?
Oh, my gosh, man.
I've been to Charlotte.
Wow. Yes, and hello.
Liz, George,
Nice to meet you, Liz.
Finally.
Man, it's good to see you.
You too. You getting old. You got
thank
gray
you.
hair. You got a gray beard.
See that?
Yeah.
The guilt, when she told me, come over and see me that night, and I didn't go, and then he came and killed me.
Yeah, man. Hey, look, as Brandy's son, listen, tell me how, as her son, my boy, you're not responsible for anything that happened to us. I also remember her life isn't the only life. It was also other victims and there's other family members who feel the same pain.
You heal, but you still got them scars.
Look at my neck, dog.
I remember that, looking at you through the hospital door. Look, I'm shaking. Wow. That's how close, look at that, that's how close you came to not being here. Oh, my word. Wow. Your lips are still red from being strangled.
Yeah, and that was the main part. I'm like, that's why I say I'm the only survivor. Like, that's a survivor.
Yeah.
That little baby right there, like.
And that's you now.
Yeah, that's me now. Still with the tears and all, bro.
Wow.
At trial, Henry Wallace was found guilty of the assault on Tyrese.
It's like, why didn't I die? Truthfully, I wanted to die for a long time. As I started learning more that I'd be too selfish, she fought too hard to keep me alive. And that's why I didn't die. There's no time frame on grieving. There's no time frame on how long you can and can't miss somebody. But it's like, I'm a survivor.
Wallace was sentenced to death, but now he's asking a judge for a new trial.
For him to be here pleading for his life, not fair. It's not justice.
And I just believe it's time. It's time for us to finally see that end. It's 25 years this year that he was sentenced to death, and I'm ready for him to be executed.
I think he got an appropriate sentence, but North Carolina has not executed anyone in a very long time.
My goal now is to start a petition and let people sign that so that we can get an execution date and finally get this resolved.
I was determined that I wasn't going to hate him. You kind of have to let it go, otherwise it will consume you.
I don't feel hate for him now. I started journaling, and it really did help.
I forgave Henry years ago for the madness of what he did.
I don't harbor that hate for him, but I do think that justice should be served.
Audrey is buried in South Carolina. My dad donated an acre of land for a new cemetery, and Audrey was the first one buried in that cemetery.
She has a niece named Audrey Lynette Franklin. Part of her legacy will definitely continue, so we're excited about that.
She does have a son. His name is Eric Slaughter. He reminds me of Deborah a lot. I think she would be very proud of him and the progress that he has made in his life.
I just wanted mothers to come together and join our forces and our hearts. MAMO, Mothers of Murdered Offspring.
The whole point in MAMO being created was to make sure that Shauna's memory lived on.
Should have never happened. But it made us better detectives, and it made Charlotte Police Department a better homicide unit.
In a statement to 2020 about the Wallace investigation, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department says the detectives worked the cases as diligently as they would have any homicide case, with the race of the victim being irrelevant. In the aftermath of the murders, the department says it added staffing to the homicide unit and implemented regular mandatory meetings to better identify related cases.
You know, the guys in the homicide unit, I know them all from that time. It's just that they were put in a situation where you just couldn't win.
Listen to the families, because they are the voices of the victims.
I fight for my own breath sometimes. I fight to be here. If I had $1 for every time that I've been told, Miss Sumter, I know I'm gonna make it because you're making it. None of these young African-American ladies deserve to die. They were young ladies who deserve to have a bright future. And so, you know, my hope and prayer is that even though as tragic as this was, something positive will come out of it.
We should point out tonight that 2020 did reach out to Henry Louis Wallace for comment. He declined to be interviewed.
Dee Sumter, who started the organization Mothers of Murdered Offspring, has now retired, but the group continues to help the families of victims. That's our program for tonight. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.